Has had a great weekend, and you guys stayed productive and prepared for the coming collapse of the world, which is nigh, I guess is the proper term for it. It's always nigh. It's always been nigh. But it's nigher as of recently. Anyways, guys, I hope you guys are staying in shape, gearing up, learning how to use your weapons, how to farm your your ground, because we need live cult members. And in Minecraft, I'm gonna start using that a lot more in Minecraft because I feel like some of the things I already got a community note strike on YouTube. I wasn't very long. That did not take very long at all. I don't even know what it was for. But I was expecting it. Anyways, happy Monday, everybody. It is February 26th, 2024, and it's not quite spring yet. It's still winter. But I'm waiting for the spring, and I'm ready for the hot weather and the beach. But besides that, tonight we are going to be watching the demographic winter. So I'm hoping for a demographic spring at some point. The demographic winter. Sorry. That was my monitor. That was my playback. Anyways, guys. Yeah, what this documentary is about is people basically aren't having enough babies. And it's not all types of people. I mean, it's certain types of people that aren't having enough babies. People that typically work in engineering jobs or high tech or something like that. We're not replacing the people we need to replace, and we're coaxing the people that we don't exactly need to reproduce, right? You have welfare queens with like 12 kids and they don't do anything but live off the government. That's, everyone's seen the movie Idiocracy. And, I hate when people are like, oh, it's a documentary. I guess. I mean, okay. But, I mean, remember, you guys are the future of past people who were probably also smarter than you. So this process has been going on for some time. Right? Just whittling away at the people that we need in society. Smart people. Right? I heard the average IQ in ancient Greece was like 140 or something like that, which is insane. But not anymore. Now Greece is just full of greasy people. And I'm not saying they're like from Greece. No, they're physically greasy. I seen them. Right? Well, now it's also a bunch of Africans. Like any place that was formerly white, it is now filled with Africans. Goodbye, Ireland. It was nice. Now the fighting Irishman is going to be, he's going to be a black guy, right? So it's not a surprise he's fighting. Anyways, guys, let's go ahead and get this going. Thank you so much for joining me tonight. I'm the Incredible Sulk. This is the Sulk stream. And, yeah, this is Demographic Winter. By the way, I didn't get my VLC to work. No idea what's going on there. Gotta mute that.
Solutions. Yeah. I think we find ourselves at a crossroads. There's one way
Tim,
to turn this
Casey,
around.
Cash to Everything Cheddar. Seek Truth. Hey, Seek Truth. Are you new?
I'd call
we have a thing.
the
We love bomb new people. So, because it's a cult. You've entered a cult.
Swedish model.
Call your dad. Andrew Smith, what's up? Cheddar?
There's not much you can say for the Swedish model that's encouraging.
If you've got a country or a region of the world that is losing population, that's devastating. I mean, that would say that that region would be in a depression, we'd call it in economics.
Usually, right? But it's not, we don't have a depression now because we just keep pumping money into the system. So our stocks are at all times highs while, average people have to have 3 jobs just to pay the rent. It's still a depression. We just don't call it a depression. There's sneaky ways around it, and there's political reasons that we don't call it a depression because obviously the people who are in control now control the media and the banking system and stuff like that. So it can't look like they're not doing a good job. But even though they're intentionally not doing a good job, things are harder, right? I mean, groceries are a lot more expensive. Rent is impossible. I don't pay rent, so I'm pretty happy about that. But a lot of people do. And that sucks, right? What is that, like half of your income? A third? Back in the 90s, rent was like maybe 10% of your income. That's insane. That is a lot of disposable money, right? Disposable spending cash that you could just spend on whatever, start another business, take a trip, influence and push the economy further than just paying your landlord and the electric bill, right? But we can't do that anymore. Now we're just really, really slaves. We were slaves back then, but we're really slaving. We're slaving good now. Seek Truth says, I have been shopping for a new Colt, John. Well, welcome. It's we take all comers. It's not a sex cult. That's why I didn't want to say it like that. But yeah, we do. Not a sex cult.
My experience in talking to people about this is that they simply don't understand.
And if you want to be a part of the cult, you have to buy a shirt. The bonfire is in the description.
About to happen.
So, dem's the rules. I don't make them up. I'm just the head of the cult. And yes, I make up the rules.
There's not much quibble.
It's not me.
There's not much controversy among people in the know.
I'm blaming God. If I like legitimately had a cult, I would blame God for any little mishap I might have, like a spelling error, or maybe I spilled some wine one night when I was too drunk. That'd be God. Because what are the people gonna say? No, it wasn't. You're like the supreme leader. They're gonna be like, well, he did it for a reason, right? He got stark raving mad and naked and ran through the street at night because he saw an angel or something like that. I'm gonna stick to it. Hey, Arden. Bluefinger.
We have entered into a new phase of modern history.
A bad phase. It's not a good phase. It's not a good phase when most people aren't reproducing at all. If you look at pictures from like the 1920s or like your grandma's family, right? And then it's your great grandparents and they have like 12 kids. And it's not even an issue. It's not unusual. It's nothing. It's just, you have 12 kids, you bang a lot. There's no contraception, and there's no even thought of contraception because why? Kids are an asset, right? Each kid could be another hand to help work the fields or whatever. But we don't have fields anymore, so we don't need as many kids. So we start thinking about contraception, and then lo and behold, we take it too far and put the species in danger of extinction just because we wanted to live out our 20s or our 30s carefree. Now we have, a glut of people that are 70, 60, 70 years old that are controlling everything. And there's not enough people for when those people go into the retirement, which they should have already. There's not enough people to support and pay for all the promises and liabilities that the U.S. government has promised to these people, which is why in 2020, they made them all take a shot. That does something, but we know it doesn't protect you from the flu. But it does something.
One that we desperately need to understand.
Stocknot says grandmas can still get it,
though.
though.
A great decline in maybe 70 countries
That's you,
now
man.
that are
That's
below
you.
replacement fertility.
Replacement fertility is the number of childbirths per woman that is required to replace the existing population.
Existing, so
We're
not
going
even
into
growing.
a new era.
Why is this aging, and why is this demographic winter occurring?
It's happening in rich countries, it's happening in poor countries, it's happening in Catholic countries, Islamic countries.
So there's a lot of reasons for this, and it could be environmental, but a lot of it is also policy. Roe v. Wade, birth control being readily accessible, sexual education in schools, and a lot of people, if you look at it a certain way, they're like, oh, well, of course, kids are going to be able to plan their families more realistically, like be able to better plan their families, but it doesn't turn out like that. It doesn't turn out like that. It turns out that, you know, these women being promised all the good things in life, like a career and a big house and stability, they push back having children until it's way too late, typically. This is just how they hide it, though. This is how they hide a depopulation agenda. They act like they're doing something good for people, but in reality, it's actually very destructive.
And that
goes for a lot of
everywhere.
things.
People are having fewer and fewer children.
When fewer children are born, there are proportionately more elderly. This is called an aging population.
The world for the last
Yes, it
200
is.
years has been population increases pretty much.
And think about Japan. Japan didn't have a baby boom after World War II like the U.S. did, because they were rebuilding too. So people in Japan are old as shit, and they don't have, like, their population is going to be a third of what it is now in 2100 or something like that, which is insane. That's a lot of people to just not exist. I mean, obviously they're going to die by then, but they're not reproducing enough, right? I think the pixelation is confusing them, right? They watch the porn and it's all pixelated, and they're like, what do I do with this? What do I do with this thing? Oh, well, I guess we're going to go extinct because this porn is not anatomically correct.
Much in all countries. So that's the challenge, to try to first understand why it's happening and then some consequences.
I mean, yeah, probably. 50% and 50, I think they were talking about male fertility in that. Testosterone levels in males have dropped a lot. And some people say it's on purpose. Some people say it's on accident. I think it's probably a mixture of both, because they know these chemicals are getting into the food supply and the air and the water, but they're not really doing anything to stop it. And, you know, if there's less people, that's more for them. So they probably have much better medical technology than they're allowing the public access to. I believe that. I'm sure they have the cure for cancer and probably have had it for a long time. Yeah, so just let them die off.
The reason the world
Bravo,
has
Clamp.
experienced a population explosion over the past century is not because human beings suddenly started breeding like rabbits. It's because they finally stopped dying like flies. What's really driven up human numbers has been a health explosion.
The population of children in the world has already declined. And yet, world population will probably grow by another 1.7, 1.8 billion. It's a paradoxical reality until you do the simple arithmetic to see what's happening to the population of different age.
Wait, okay, so if there's less children, how is the population still growing? I mean, people get older, but that's still the same number. I don't know. It doesn't matter. 7.5 billion. No, we're at 7.5 now. Yeah, there's just going to be a shitload of old people. Really, a lot of old people, because the boomers are the largest generation by a good margin, right? They have all the voting power. They have all the power in Washington. They own all the companies, and they're going to hang on to life. They're going to hang on to dear life. And they're going to use their vast power to extend their life as much as possible until maybe they escape that. They get to that escape velocity of aging. You see, as you push aging up, like the older you get, the better technology to keep you alive gets. So that technology could make you even older. And then you get older, and then there's better technology, and eventually you just hit a point where you're just not going to die anymore because technology is advancing so fast that you're essentially immortal. Is that going to happen for the boomers? I really, really hope not, because then it'll be, we'll be under complete control. We are under complete control now, but imagine that lasting for how many lifetimes do you want? Right? They might give you the everlasting life or something, or make you pay a subscription or something, right? $8 a month and you get to live, right? It's like Netflix, only with a heartbeat. But then they might just make life terrible all the time for everybody. And then, you're going to have to off yourself. Either that or be a slave for the rest of eternity. Either that or they just won't give a fuck and not give it to you at all. And then there will be a race of immortal elves ruling over the lower classes, which is like some Elysium type of bullshit. Those are both equally possible.
Certain population reduction in at least some countries, and in many countries without immigration, enters us into unknown terrain where there are potentially very significant negative consequences.
Subreplacement fertility a generation and more ago means that the working age population, age 15 to 64, is going to be slowing and then peaking and then declining more or less indefinitely as far as the demographer's eye can see.
So Cheddar says, unless they start importing more Indians than Chinese goods like Canada, and they aren't bad people, but they have this illusion that they will make it big, and some do, but most end up in trouble and in debt if they just stayed in their own country. Right. So there is the idea of coming over and making it big, and that's not really what most people that do come here are thinking, right? If they do come here, they're not planning on making it big. They're going to work illegally for a while and send as much money back home as possible. So this is literally like having a leech on our society. People who come in, don't pay taxes, but also take up free education, free healthcare. They don't have to pay for stitches, but Americans do, right? If you're a citizen, you do. But if you're an illegal, you're somehow better or some bullshit like that. And they get all types of free shit. You know the joke where, like, what are you going to do for your retirement? Oh, I'm going to renounce my citizenship, and then sneak back into the U.S., and then I'll be set for life. And there's truth to that, right? There's got to be all sorts of programs that are being advertised in Central South America saying, go to the U.S., vote Democrat, and we will give you free housing, a job, free education. You'll be able to make it. You know, you'll have the American dream. But really, these people are just pawns. They're just pawns, right? They're importing votes. They're lowering the cohesiveness of the nation as to better take it over, right? They're poisoning the well that they intend to drink out of. I don't know why they think that's a good idea, but they do.
In previous eras in which we had manpower shortages, we resorted to things like slavery and indentured servitude. And gradually, as the world population took off, beginning in the 18th century, we freed more and more categories of people from slavery, from debt peonage.
Most people think, because they've seen it all their life, real estate only goes up. They're not making more of it. Population.
And this whole slavery thing is, I mean, I don't want to be that cliche kind of guy and say, well, slavery still exists, but it does. And not even just in like, you know, North African open air slave markets. It exists in just different forms around the world, in debt slavery and, you know, servitude. You go and you get a federal loan from the government to get an education, right? And you borrow like 250 grand or something like that for something stupid, and you made yourself a slave for the rest of your life. Compound interest will make sure that even after a decade of paying into it, like the minimum payments, you're still going to have at least $250,000 to pay off, if not $300,000 by then. They know this is going to happen, if not all, then to at least a good portion of people. Maybe they don't want to enslave all people because it will cause a revolution, but they can enslave a good amount, right? And it's going to be totally their prerogative. It was their decision, even though they were 18 years old and were too stupid to fucking figure out their ass from, I don't know, some other ass. They signed this contract, which is a lifelong contract. That's a lifelong contract. They don't give you loans for houses, but they'll give you $250,000 to go and learn interpretive dance theory because they know you're not going to pay it off. And then they're going to have, you know, be like, okay, well, if you vote, you know, for Joe Biden, we'll pay off your student debts, even though we're the ones who put you in that situation in the first place. Yeah.
It's growing, and real estate doesn't always go up. It was down a lot of the early 1900s, and particularly in the 1930s in that depression.
Northern Italy and parts of Spain, with fertility rates below 1. Homes in abandoned villages all around Europe.
First, there's few births. Fertility rate is very low. It's 1.38 in Europe, whereas the rate needed for survival is 2.1.
So that's replacement, right? 2.1 kids. The average household, I don't know what the average is. Lower. Did it just say, and did I miss it? Lower, right? So the people aren't reproducing themselves, even though they're being pushed from very young ages to be like homosexual and stuff. And lots of other programs to make sure that people don't reproduce, right? Like Planned Parenthood doesn't have to report a minor. Like if a minor comes to have an abortion, they don't have to tell her parents that she came for an abortion, which is fucked up. Parental rights in this country maybe not like Florida, but in California are fucked up. In Canada are fucked up. The children belong to the state, and if they determine that they don't like the way you're raising your child, they'll just take him away. Take them away. If you have multiple ones, right? If your 13-year-old girl comes to you and says, Dad, I think I'm a boy in Canada, it's over. It's over. They got to her. They changed her mind. This little worm is in her brain. It's over. She's lost because the government can come in and remove her from your care, saying you're a bigot. You don't want what's best for your child. Oh, you're going to have a dead daughter rather than a live son, which is complete nonsense. It's all brainwashing, and this is all to reduce the population. And when they do reduce the population, they're like, oh my God, people aren't reproducing enough. So we got to have this influx of migrants into places that don't need migrants, right? Ireland and Sweden don't need millions of Africans. They just don't. And they're like, oh, who's going to replace our tech jobs? Not millions of Africans. Yeah, they have cell phones and they're like fighting age males. That doesn't mean they're going to be good at, electrical engineering or architecture or any sort of usefulness, right? I saw a video of a train station in Sweden, and one of the migrants was just shitting in the garbage can, just standing on it and shitting it. And people were too polite. They just walked right on by, didn't even make eye contact. I'm like, are you goddamn kidding me? Are you fucking kidding me? This is what you want your country to be? People shitting in open trash cans? And these people are like, oh, well, they fought. They're dreamers. They fought to come. No, they didn't. They hopped on a boat that was, probably operated by the UN and then came over. They probably didn't even want to leave, but their government was all like, if you don't leave this country, we're going to put you in jail. If you don't go to America, you are going to the place where we keep murderers because you're a murderer. That's what Trump means when he says they're not sending their best. No, they're sending felons. They're sending people they don't want.
While Western Europe is experiencing low fertility, parts
Parental
of
rights
Eastern
are
Europe
fucked.
are already
And it's a shame. And it's the first thing that, it's your most basic right as a human being is to raise your child the way you see fit, right? It's like that and what you put in your body, what you eat. You have basic animal rights. And when the government comes in and says, well, no, because we've determined with our panel of experts that, transgenderism is real and you're just being a bigot. So now we're going to take your daughter away. We're going to give her all types of hormone treatments and surgeries that are irreversible. And then, we might dump her on the street when she's 18 and she'll soon be dead. Right? Maybe she'll come back to you, but she's not going to live. Right? What are you going to do? Like, a teenage boy becomes a girl, chops his dick off, and then he has to dilate his neo-vagina twice a day for the rest of his life? No man is making it. No man is making it very far doing that. That sounds horrific. And whoever told you that it wasn't going to be that bad needs to be shot. Because that's torture. You're literally torturing yourself just so you can have some weird sex fantasy or maybe feel accepted by somebody because you don't feel accepted. And that's hard, right? Being accepted by people takes work and practice, and not everyone is. But changing your gender for acceptance isn't going to make you a better person, right? Challenges like this are handed to people throughout their life to see how they do with them. If you change your gender, you're all like, well, let me just change the settings on this video game, right? I'm going to go from hard mode to super easy mode and see how that goes. You don't develop any skill doing that. You don't become a better person. You're supposed to develop a character as you become an adult, right? Changing your organs and your outward appearance to pretend you're something you're not is not a mature thing to do. An adult doesn't do that. An adult accepts their lot in life and tries to make the best of it. Not change their gender, for God's sakes. Ric Flair's hair, $5. Thanks, bro. Coming soon to a neighborhood near you. God, I hope not.
Experiencing population decline.
From 1989,
not in my fucking neighborhood.
For example, to 2002, the population has decreased by 13%.
Thank you, Casey. She says I got to be the top 10 dads. Top 10 dads. Thank you. I had a great day with my son today. We played a lot.
The United States will face severe problems even before population itself may begin to decline.
Imagine if all your taxes went for nothing but Social Security and Medicare, and you still didn't have health care as a young person. All right, so we face real challenges here.
Low fertility levels, which
taking control of healthcare is part of the playbook of tyranny. When you take control of the healthcare system as a government, you get to call the shots, you call the prices. This is why you go to the doctor's office and it's like $900 to get stitches or something like that. A stitch. You could go home and stitch it up yourself for next, like almost free. And there's YouTube videos they're out there where it'll teach you how to stitch. Don't go to the doctor. Don't go to the doctor. Unless you are about to die, don't go to the doctor. Because they might get you dead quicker than if you just did nothing. Right? I mean, especially if you're Canadian. They give you a list of options, right? Like, do you want medication? Do you want surgery, or do you want to just end your life? And you're like, I just have allergies, the pills will work fine. They're like, okay, but I have this noose right here. And we also have this pod that sucks all the oxygen out of it. And apparently it's supposed to be super calming. But did you see the prisoner who actually did that? He went for the oxygen deprivation tank, and he struggled for like 20 minutes just flopping on the table. It was ghastly. Don't think just because they say it's gonna be, oh, it'll just be like going to sleep, right? And then it'll be over. No, it won't. No. Your brain is gonna freak out. You're gonna flop around. You're gonna hurt yourself. And then it's gonna be a long, drawn out death. And they're going to be like, well, that looked peaceful. That looked peaceful to me.
which is the main cause.
We're dealing with some ghoulish motherfuckers. Like straight up monsters. Very, very, very bad people. And they're just running the show. Damn. They're just running the fucking show.
Declining populations means we don't have so many people in working ages compared to those who are retired and collecting retirement and other benefits. How are we going to finance it in the future?
It's also true that never in history.
Seek the Truth says the more they ruin the kids and confuse the population, the more the rulers and gatekeepers gain and retain power. Slavery never ended. It just became modernized. Yeah, they just found a better way, a cheaper way to have slaves. Back in the day, when you had to buy slaves off, the Amistad or something like that, and then transport them to your farm and then give them a log cabin and clothing and food and training and stuff, all of these things cost money. This is energy. This is work, right? So slaves were very expensive. Just to have a slave. I mean, imagine keeping a horse. Keeping a horse isn't cheap. So if you have a bunch of slaves, you need that's expensive. But now you just pay them a certain amount of money, which would have been lower. It's a lower amount of money than it is for you to buy all of the things. You know what I'm trying to say? They're paying you less than they would have spent to keep you as a slave. They've made the system more efficient and cheaper. And now they're not slave owners, they're business owners. And they're giving you opportunities. They're giving you opportunities, right? Because if you don't want to be a slave, then there's a million other slaves out there that will do it, better and probably cheaper. And now we're reaching out beyond the states and enslaving people in like India for a nickel an hour or some bullshit like that. But the people who run the companies get to say they're morally superior because they're not technically enslaving people.
Have we had
I don't know about
economic prosperity accompanied by depopulation?
Modern economies need growing populations, which means that every developed nation needs immigration.
Developed countries would say that there's no problem with aging because they can make up the lack of labor force by immigration, which is happening today, especially in Europe, Australia.
This will mean greater outmigration.
No. You can't replace the labor force with just whoever, right? If you could do that, that means where these people came from would also be equally developed. They would be just as developed as where they're going to. Say they're going to Sydney, right? So if they were able to replace the labor force in Sydney, that means the place where they came from would be Sydney-like, right? A developed city, there would be an opera house, there'd be a civilization, a law system, that kind of stuff. But that's not it. They import these people from the jungle, the deserts, places with no buildings higher than a bamboo shack, with technology that hasn't even achieved the wheel yet. Oh yeah, that'll be great for your labor force. That'll make your city sparkle, right? And then you just get immigrants shitting in the trash can in the train station, and you're all like, progress, finally progress. And then they don't get charged for doing things like rape and stuff. They're all like, man, if you were white, you'd be in jail for a long time, but you're an immigrant, and so that means you don't know any better. So that's it. So they get to go around. They're gonna call their friends back in Mogadishu or whatever and be like, dude, there's unlimited white women here to rape. They're not going to do nothing. And then you get a plane full or, a door full, right? However they travel, a carpet, however they travel, they're going to be coming over in droves, in absolute droves. And this is war. That is an invasion. It doesn't matter if they don't have weapons on them because they can make weapons when they get there. Why do you think London is having so many problems with stabbings and stuff? Is it because the English people just all of a sudden one day said, hey, these knives are pretty sharp. Let's start stabbing each other. No. It wasn't like that. It wasn't like that back in the 50s. Where there was a huge stabbing problem. What could it be that now they have to not only not have guns, because remember they don't have guns, but they can't even have kitchen knives. They have to cut the tips off of kitchen knives because the population can't stop from stabbing each other. Oh, it must be the native Britons. It must be. Right, that's the problem.
Migration from the poor countries.
That's
Without migration, it's basically young, it's basically male.
And that is very serious
young male.
For several reasons.
Always.
But,
Always. It's kids, it's male children, not children always, but men. It's 14, 15 to 45, 50, right? The main age range, right? And these people, they have families back where they're from. They have wives and children and stuff. And they're going to be like, I'm going to go work here. And then they just run amok. And yep, there's no refugees. They're not refugees. It's not like a woman and her 2 kids or something like that. But sometimes it might be 1 in a million, 1 in 1,000. But who gets the camera attention, right? It's always that Latin lady dragging her 9-year-old girl through razor wire to get to a better life in America. Yeah, you seem like a stand-up parent. Really. You seem like a fucking stand-up parent. Put your kid in that much danger for what? For free things. For free things. And we still, even after all of this, that people come over and we give to them, we're still sending huge amounts of money, billions of dollars out in foreign aid every year. It's draining the country dry, completely dry. That's why everyone's poor as shit. Back in the boomer days, like when they were our age, in their 30s, they had a ski chalet and 2 houses. And, oh, will this fit my jet skis and my extra boat? And it's not like they were smarter, even though they love to think that. It's just they were more corrupt. They didn't fulfill their obligation to the future generations. But you tell them about this, they're going to plug their ears and blah, 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 blah. Because they're little children. They're little babies. They're little fucking babies. The boomer generation is the worst generation ever created in the history of the planet. I'm sure. I'm just sure. Maybe there was other bad generations, but I didn't meet them. But this generation, this boomer generation, with nothing but lust for money and power and social status, is despicable. Really. I mean, bad.
That I like to point out is one is the labor productivity is decreased in the developing country because there's no labor force. They are overseas. And second, the generation of human capital, because those children are growing up without a father.
Right? And so the fathers from the country, like Ghana, right? I'm gonna go. So the fathers from those countries leave, and then they go and they do all the rapes and stabbings and stuff. And so not only do we have a bunch of rapists and murderers in developed countries, now we have that country, which is getting even worse because they don't have any masculine parental figures. So then they just leave a country full of women and children. And they're like, okay, fuck off. We don't want you. Y'all ugly anyway. That's exactly what's happening. And these people are poor and downtrodden, even though they have their like a $700 cell phone and are smoking cigarettes with their leather jacket. Suck my dick.
Human capital refers to the knowledge, skills, information that people have. Modern economies are based on information and knowledge, not physical strength, but mental command of different types of information and skills. So it's the foundation of modern economies. Any economy that doesn't have substantial investments in its people's human capital won't be able to become a modern or a rich economy.
It would be ironic and it would be very unjust that the poor countries should come out to bail out the rich countries because the rich countries have been delinquent in doing their homework to keeping up stable and...
Nobody is going to be bailing out the U.S. because we imported too many African people. Nobody is going to be bailing us out, right? They're going to be like, it's your fucking problem. And we're going to be like, oh, even after all the money we gave you, the money we donated in foreign aid almost exclusively went into politicians' pockets. I mean, maybe they did it through some sort of program where like, oh, we're housing our people. So we bought 7 tin shanty roofs and we charged $8 million for them. Right? That's money laundering. And that's the entire world these days. It's just money laundering. Money laundering in one way or another. ETFs or fine art or Hunter Biden's paintings sell for hundreds of thousands of dollars. Hunter Biden's paintings sell for more money than some Van Goghs. Can you believe that? More than some Van Goghs. More than Picasso's, Rembrandt's, whatever you want. Because no one's looking at a shitty artwork. It's money laundering scheme. It's also an insurance scheme, just like 9/11 was.
Strong families, and then they themselves would lose theirs, bailing us out.
This chapter is about the American family and why it is that that the United States is having enough children to replace itself, more or less. I think many people would say it's Hispanic immigrants that are having children fairly early, having 2 or 3, when Greece and Spain and France...
2 or 3? What Hispanic family do you know with 2 or 3 kids? They're always like 11 kids, right? I'm from California. There's a lot of Hispanics everywhere. They were kept in certain barrios, which is what they call them. And one small apartment, like the size of this room. You don't see it, but it's not a very big room. There'd be 11 people there in bunks, right? And like they'd be getting smashed at night and then go and mow lawns and then come back and get smashed again. They're not planning on staying here forever. They're not trying to build onto the society. They're just trying to take what they can from it and leave. Right? And they can get a lot. They can get a lot of money. Right? And then they just send it back through the Western Union. They find in the, the supermercado. And because they all have it. They all have a Western Union in those Mexican supermarkets. And they send it back. And this happens millions of times every day. Across the country. Imagine the amount of money that is going, just leaving. Bye. No taxes. Nothing like that. It's just gone. It's just gone. And now we're expected to not only support a huge military budget, but now also Ukraine's budget, Israel's budget. We're, 30 trillion in debt? At least? Each person has more debt when they're born than they could probably make in a lifetime. I know it's like hundreds of thousands of dollars. A baby born, and like a white baby, like an American baby, born is going to be saddled with so much debt that there's no way they're ever going to be able to crawl their way out of it. But a little Hispanic anger baby won't have that problem. And if he does, he'll just go back to his home country. And then he doesn't have that problem anymore because they're not going to extradite him. Right? They send over killers and felons and stuff. And what do? They kill and commit felonies. And then they go back to their home country. And their home country was like, na boo boo, we're not sending him to you. Ooh, I had to make that rhyme. But this system is all engineered and it's not broken. It's working exactly how it was intended to work. And it's killing us.
And Italy and
little by little, it's killing us.
Japan and Russia, all of Eastern Europe have fertility that's much below replacement.
Mexico has experienced an incredible birth dearth. The decline in fertility in Mexico is without precedent in world history. Americans have this vision that there'll always be Mexicans trying to come across the border and that we need some huge wall to keep them out. Well, careful what you wish for, because not only in Mexico, but throughout Latin America.
Okay, so I can tell this is pretty old. 2008. 2008. Yeah, careful what you wish for. I wish we had that fucking border wall. I wish we didn't import millions upon millions of immigrants that have no special skills or anything like that. You know how difficult it is to get into Australia as like a white person. You need to be under 30. You need to have at least $10,000. You need to have a host. You need to have some sort of usefulness, right? A degree, or, you know, be a doctor or something. They want you to not be a drain on society. But as soon as people call them refugees, all that shit's off. They're refugees? Oh, forget it. Come on over, refugees. We're so sorry that, you know, you had a war in South America and had to walk through 7 other non-warring countries to get to us. But now we're going to give you all this fucking money that comes out of, we don't know, just some printing press. But it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter because you can still buy things with it. Come on over, you useless sack of shit.
We're seeing dramatic declines in fertility.
60% of U.S. population growth since 1990 has come from immigrants and their children, mostly Hispanic immigrants.
Adam Smith, probably the greatest of all economists, once wrote that prosperity is associated with growing populations, and depression, he didn't quite use that word, but he meant that, is associated with declining population.
Yeah.
It's new. Could lead to...
And that makes perfect sense, right? Because you have more resources to have more children. If you have more money, if the entire population has more money, then everyone has more resources to have more children. But for people that... So there's 2 different types of reproduction strategies. There's R reproduction, and then there's K reproduction. And I forget which one is which, but I think K reproduction is where you have a smaller amount of children, and you invest more resources, more time into those children to get the best chance of reproduction. And our selection reproduction is where it's a shotgun approach, where you have as many as you can, you send them out there, and one of them is bound to reproduce, right? So you can tell certain societies run on K selection and certain societies run on R selection. And we are importing our selected humans into a K selected society. And we're wondering why there's so many fucking R selected people around. Let's say that. Why are all these hard R's here? That's what we're going to say. From now on, it's a cult thing.
These are a few that I know.
Jot it down, obedient. Why are all these hard R selected
Before we go further into
people
the
here?
consequences of demographic winter, let us first explore the causes. How did we get here?
Why did fertility decline?
Feel better,
so
obedient.
much? I mean,
I'm
that's
sorry
the
you're sick, man.
$64,000 question, as we say. I wouldn't say we know all the reason by a long shot, but
But people in the cult, we don't get sick. So obedience not sick. His I don't know, his chakra is out of alignment. I don't know if we're gonna believe in chakras. But you know how like Scientologists say, "Oh, you got too many thetans, man. You're just topped off with thetans, and that's why you feel like this." We need to come up with something like that. Some sort of imaginary malady that we can tell people that they have, and this is why they feel like shit. Cook that up. Help me out. Help me out there, guys.
And evidence suggests some of the very important reasons. One is the growing value of the time of mothers, working mothers.
Stonknod said, "You inside-out dingus. You have a severe case of inside-out dingus, and the only way to fix your dingus is to buy our dingus repertory course, and there's like $700 worth of books, and there's like a seminar that's $1,500 and it's over the weekend. And then your dingus will be not inside out anymore. Right? The dingus reverse dingus reverso. I feel like it's a Harry Potter.
Educated mothers.
The more successful women become in the workplace before they have their children, the higher the opportunity costs when they have their kids. So it's
Topped off
harder
with sulks?
to leave work.
So
yeah, no, I don't want to name the bad miasma after myself. I'm not going to say you have too many sulks in you. You don't have enough sulk in you. You want a little sulk in you? That sounds that sounds like a sex cult. It's so hard walking on eggshells and not sounding like a sex cult when there's so many sexual innuendos that are made. Inside out dingus. A little sulk in you. This is tough. It's tough. But we are not a sex cult. Check out the shirts.
They don't want to spend as much time having children.
Premium dingus for all.
Participating in the labor force and doing other things. That's clearly been important.
Yeah, totally. Women working. Ugh.
Well,
Equals fertility.
Some of the causes.
This is a huge problem that I think women, you fucking shot yourselves in the foot with this one. You like petitioned to like vote and, you know, be in the workforce. And, you know, after that, you're all like, okay, that was fun. Now that we won, we don't want to do this anymore. Right? We just want special, specific jobs meant for women, right? So then they put them in like CEOs or middle management or something like that. And they oversee like sewer cleaners and stuff. Like a man that's been there for decades. He has a new female boss because they have to hire a woman. They have to have women. And she can't clean the sewers because she's just not physically meant to do it. Or she's pregnant or something. Or she was pregnant and now her brain is like constantly on the baby. No, you put her in HR, which was not a department before women started working. And now she has some sort of power, which she loves, and she misuses it. Also, she gets paid half of what you would have been paid, right? So it cuts your salary in half. And then you both have less spending power, and it doubles the tax base of the American government. It's a win-win for the American government, right? You have less time to raise children that could be dissenters, and they double their tax base. God damn. God, why do you keep doing that? Why do you keep doing that, women? Why do you keep doing that? Stop.
Those are very closely related to the economy, and those are not necessarily
KSW,
bad factors, like the growing education of women. Very good. Women now have higher education than men in the United States.
Yeah. And another thing with these higher education places, these colleges, I guess colleges, because they're not really colleges. A college used to be a place where like monks would go and study for their entire lives. But then it became something where you had to go or else you wouldn't get a career. And now it's mainly women who go to colleges during their prime fertile years. And then they get brainwashed in these heavily leftist environments that are almost exclusively women. Remember, all of education is mainly headed by women. So they don't have any masculine influence all the way up until they're like 25, 26 years old. There's no saving you after that. There's no saving you, especially if you grew up without a father in the first place. You're fucked. You're done for. Because your head is going to be pumped so full of propaganda and man-hating rhetoric that you're never going to be able to actually settle down with a man, because your standards are only getting higher as you get older, right? You don't have time to mess around. You need to find the right one now because you're 27, 28, 30, 34, 35. 35, you don't have time to mess around. You got to find the one that is going to give you a baby. You know, but the one you want doesn't want a 35-year-old, you know. So then you get angry, you get mad, and you cut your hair short, and you scream at the top of your lungs. You go on marches, and you take your shirt off and said, "I'm a proud slut." And your parents just shake their heads. Your ancestors just shake their heads because you fell so deep into their trap that you can't, you're drowning. The darkness is just overtaking you. Turn around. Turn around and look for the light, you guys. But many of those women are lost forever.
Many more women are enrolled in college than men, so that's one consequence. A second very important factor, richer countries have more money to spend, but they also have greater aspirations because they're in richer economies. They want to spend more on themselves, adults, and they want to spend more on their children.
Affluence doesn't just mean that we...
Stockton said, not in a bad way, but women are fragile and emotional centered, which makes them an extremely easy target. Yeah, and it's our job as men to protect them from themselves to a certain degree, right? But you give all this autonomy to women and they don't like it, you know? They really don't like it on a certain level. And this is why they want to import Muslims from a country that treats their women like garbage, because on a certain level, they don't like all this responsibility they have for themselves. They don't want to build their own life. They just want to go and have kids and be taken care of. But they're angry. They're angry now because of their own decisions, because we let them make these decisions. We thought this was a good idea. It wasn't. It was not a good idea.
Buy more stuff.
And now we're in this situation.
It means that we also want to live our lives as individuals as opposed to being in large groups.
Taylor Swift must take some blame.
Well, they have fewer children.
She better.
And invest more in...
She better. You go singing about all your bad decisions in men and then endorse Joe Biden. She is bought and paid for. Even though she's a billionaire, I'm sure her soul was sold many, many moons ago. She's going to end up just like Britney Spears. I guarantee you there's something that broke inside of Taylor Swift. Maybe she used to be sweet and bubbly, but the same thing is going to happen to her that happened to Amanda Bynes. And Amanda Bynes is fucked. There's something that happens in Hollywood and these circles that really fuck people up. Is it a ritual or something? Probably. It's probably some sort of ritual. It's probably repeated rituals. It's probably repeatedly being stabbed in the back, being seen as an outsider in all groups because you're famous and nobody wants to bother you. But, I mean, you know, that means nobody ever bothers you. So you're just always alone. And you're making too much money to stop working because a lot of people depend on you now, right? A lot of people depend on you for their salary, so you have to keep working. Because if you don't keep working, they can't feed their kids, right? So you're just a machine now, and you don't have your own life anymore. You're constantly kowtowing to other people's demands and other people's wants, and you're a billionaire, but it doesn't matter because you have no freedom left. You have no freedom left. You can't even run away because people will see you, be like, look, it's Taylor Swift. And then you're going to be mobbed. The people who are looking for you, and better believe people who are looking for you, are going to find you. And there's nothing you can do. You're going to be living in a gilded cage for the rest of your life, just like Britney Spears. She's got a nice big house, but she can't leave it. She can't leave it. And trust me, a theater and a bowling alley And, you know, a big ass pool is not worth not being able to go outside, right? It doesn't matter how nice your house is. You still want to be a human being. You want to interact with others without being judged or mocked or whatnot. But these are different days. Everyone's a little bit famous, but not like Taylor Swift. Taylor Swift is super famous. And, yeah, I don't envy her. I don't envy Amanda Bynes. I don't envy Megan Fox. There's something that's broken in all of them, and it sucks. That's sad.
Child.
When you look at all of the social science data, there seems to be one predictor that explains fertility levels better than any other, and that is desired family size, as expressed by women who are so surveyed.
Economists tell us that as countries and individuals become prosperous, they tend to desire fewer children.
I think the sexual revolution is the most profound event of the 20th century, quite honestly. It may even be the most profound event of modern history.
There definitely was a
Human
sexual
history.
revolution, and you can see it very clearly in women's reports of their lives. If you talk to women who came of age in 1960 and later, a much higher proportion will have been sexually active before marriage with somebody they did not marry.
There's no denying that once we began to travel down the road toward gender equality and all the other changes associated with it, including birth control, everything changed.
So there's a reason why, like, say there was a king and he had a daughter and he would defend her virginity with his life because her virginity was very valuable, not just to the daughter herself, but it was also valuable to the kingdom in general. Also, when women have multiple partners like this, they have problems bonding. But besides that, sex was controlled in society for a very good reason. The church controlled sexuality for a very good reason because societies are built on their sexual energy. I said this before, but everything in society is just an attempt to get laid by men, right? This is just our attempt to get laid or to feed our families, to reproduce, right? But if you can easily relieve yourself of that sexual energy by going out and banging a bunch of whores and stuff, it doesn't give you that incentive to go out and write a play or create a concerto or whatever, or paint a masterpiece, right? So by withholding sex from people, not only would it make the female happier, she would be able to bond with her partner better. She would have more children because she would also obviously be married off sooner. But it would be good for society as a whole because then there'd be two stable parents raising probably several kids. And, the man would find this balance between sexual gratification and being able to provide, be able to produce some good to society in general. There's a balance, right? Men can go without sex and build societies. Newton never got laid. Tesla never got laid. And it would make these men extremely talented and focused, but it would also make them deranged and not ideally what you would want in a society because they became too focused and they only did their thing, right? So you have to hit a middle ground where we can have more people, but also build a society that would make those people more likely to reproduce in the future for themselves. Sexual energy is everything. It's very important, and all religions, basically all religions, understood how important and how valuable it was to control and maintain sexual energy. This is why pornography is strictly forbidden in many religions, because it destroys things. Not only the person's life who indulges in a lot of pornography, but oftentimes those people get porn sick, and they, just like a heroin addict, they try to find more and more deranged porn until it actually spills out into the real world, and then they do something terrible. And then, yeah. So there's a lot of good reasons why sexual energy was controlled, and why things like prostitution and pornography were looked down upon, even to the point of masturbation. Even to the point of masturbation. And it seems silly to us now, but that's just because we've been poisoned for so long to think that, oh, it's just harmless, simple fun. Watch a little porn and stuff like that, but it's what it becomes. And not for everybody, but a large enough section of the population where it's really damaging for society as a whole. By somebody.
Women who came of age after about 1960 have more partners, are more likely to divorce, more likely to have worked than women who came of age in the 30s, 40s, or 50s. Behavior changed. The world changed in ways that affected the choices people made about sex and marriage and childbearing and work.
And most notably, I believe, the family changed.
For multiple reasons, social scientists believe that the sexual revolution had both direct and indirect effects on fertility decline.
So do you think this sexual revolution was organic or grassroots? Or do you think it was maybe an MK Ultra or Mossad or CIA or something like that? Maybe it was engineered by these agencies specifically for this outcome? Specifically made the hippie revolution, this counterculture, so that this could happen decades later? Because I think so. I think it was probably a plan, and it's a slow-burning, patient plan that has been in the works for a lot longer than any of us have been alive. A lot longer. Right? What we're seeing is just the final stages of a problem that has been engineered for decades. At least decades. But now it's accelerating so fast that people are kind of snapping out of it and being like, what have we been doing all this time? Why have we been acting like this? Look at the damage. Look at our cities that used to be glistening and beautiful, and now they're just piles of shit. People are starting to change. People are starting to wake up. And I hate saying that too, because it's cliche as fuck, but it's true. People are starting to be like, this is not as good or as innocent as what we were sold, what we were told in public education. Public education should not be sexually initiating children in any fashion, in literally any fashion, right? Because it starts small. It starts small, but then you get things like, oh, we're giving your kid hormones without you knowing. Because it started small. It's you sign, okay, you can teach them about reproduction. That's fine. But then it just, little by little, year by year, it gets more and more depraved. And now they're all like, oh, you don't want to do a book burning, do you? And you look at the books and it's like how to have gay anal sex. Yeah, I don't want that book in my public library. But they don't put that on the news, right? They make it sound like you're burning George Orwell, which is actually banned by them. It's all a trick. It's all a trick. And it's been a trick for decades. And the boomers fell for it hardest. They fell for it hardest. And, you know, they were blinded with glitz and glamour and money. Right? They knew on some level that this wasn't a positive cycle that they were continuing. But they didn't really care because they were flush. They had the cash. And, their kids' problems were their kids' problems. It wasn't their problem, right? Like World War II was their parents' problem. It wasn't their problem. They just got to have free sex and good drugs for like 40 years. Damn. That's a good trade for them. But it wasn't a good trade for us. No. Now we're fucking boned. And we have to do something. What? I don't know.
The one thing that's least discussed in our nation is the rising rate of cohabitation, non-marital cohabitation. Cohabiting couples tend to have fewer children than married couples, and it also pushes the age of marriage up and up. And one of the biggest reasons for the low fertility is people have children too late.
Yeah. So having first children at age of 20, here children are 20 years old, and then your grandchildren born at 40 years old. And yeah. But, you know, my parents were young when they had me and my siblings. And, you know, Jess's parents were young. It was just the thing to do at that time, you know. Get your family started early, but in the subsequent years, you know, things have been harder. People have been convinced to push child rearing back. And then eventually it's just, you don't have enough time left. That's just it. You might get one lumpy one, right? Because the quality of your eggs decline, right? You're going to have a less good kid at the age of 40 than you would have had at the age of 20. There's no denying that. On average, right? I'm not going to hear about some anecdotal thing where like, oh, well, you know, Sarah had her kid at 20 and he's retarded. Yeah, that happens. But I mean, like on average, the kids who are born to younger mothers, specifically younger mothers, even though younger fathers are also better, right? Like a 40, 50-year-old father can have some problems with their sperm, but typically it's a mother thing. People born to younger mothers are better off. Just typically on average. There's no arguing that.
There's some research that suggests that the change to no-fault divorce led to an increase in the divorce rate of something like 20%. The divorce revolution has really meant that neither men nor women can count on their spouse being there next year.
This whole divorce culture, too, is terrible. It's really bad. The no-fault divorce thing where it's just like, well, it's just that. It's no-fault divorce. You could just be like, well, we just disagreed, so we're going to get divorced. And you have children and you just disagree, right? And it was a point made in this, and it's about an ethos, an idea, an opinion that people of the boomer era, especially, and today's era, are more concerned about their own well-being, their own happiness, than the well-being of their children. And that was not normal. That would have been seen as mental illness. And it is. It is a mental illness. You don't want to do what's best for your children. If you ask somebody that, they'll be like, well, yeah, I do, but it just didn't work out between me and her dad. Well, why not? Did he kill someone? No, he was just a dick. But you fucked him, right? Yeah. And you fucked him enough times to have a kid, right? Yeah. And you got married, right? Yeah. Well, it sounds like your fucking problem. It sounds like you suck at picking people. Right? Is that your kid's fault? No. That's your fault. So bite the bullet and make it work. Not your life. It's not your life. It's their life. And you divorcing her dad is not going to make their life any better. It's not. If you think it is, you're fucking retarded. It's not. They convince you with media and like TV shows and pictures and stuff that it's like, oh, it's romantic and you get to open a new chapter in your life and adventure awaits. And no, you're going to be an old spinster, right? You're going to leave your husband in your 40s to be like, I'm going to start a new life and travel and, eat, pray, love and be in Bali and stuff like that. And you are going to be miserable and your children are going to hate you. You got tricked. And we've all been tricked. And I don't even know how much I can actually blame you for it. We should blame ourselves. The men of society, we should blame ourselves. We've been caught with our pants down. And again, it's not like the millennials or the Zoomers or anything like that. It's the boomers. It's the boomers. It's straight up specifically the boomers. They were given all the luxury. They were giving like all the hedonism that they could possibly want. And, what's wrong with a divorce? It's just a divorce, and then I'll have a bunch of other bitches to bang. My children will be fine. No, they won't. No, they won't. Even if you came from a divorced household and then you still continued that, knowing what happens, you're delusional. You're a bad parent. Honestly, you're a bad parent. And bad parenting is in epidemic proportions. Bad parenting, selfish parenting, where you spend 12, 18 hours at the office a night, not because you need the money, but that's because that's what you want to do, right? You want to be a career gal. And you want to spend all your time at work to climb that corporate ladder so you can have money, so you can buy shoes and stuff. So you leave your kid at home to go between like daycare and school, and you might see him like 2 hours before bedtime. But, usually you have Skype meetings during that time, so you can't really do anything there. It's selfishness. It's raw selfishness, right? It's not your life anymore. People don't get that. And this is because we've broken off from religion as a society, as a whole, right? We have no cares, no worries, no thought of judgment by God or even of other people. Sometimes being judged by society is a good thing, right? Because we keep each other in line. If somebody's 600 pounds and then, somebody looks at them with disgust, that's society trying to make sure you fucking fit in. You don't need to be 600 pounds. Right? I'm sorry if I make you feel bad when I go, ugh, when you're shoving a meatball sub down your gullet. But this is society being like, we care about you. You're another human being. You need to get your shit in order. Right? We really need to bring back shaming. It worked for so long.
The risk of divorce that a couple faces decreases the chances they'll have another child.
Al Pacino just had a kid, yeah. 70-something years old. It's not ideal.
One final cause. Various assumptions had huge impacts on the number of children that were desired. We will look at one of those.
I think it's quite natural for people who live on a planet whose dimensions are fixed to have impressed upon their consciousness the idea that we live in a world with real limits.
I can understand why the ordinary man in the street would be a little bit wary about grandiose population predictions. After all, the last thing I ever heard from demographers was we were on the throes of this population bomb.
Human numbers on the planet in the 20th century almost quadrupled, we think. And over this same period of time, the international inflation-adjusted price of rice and wheat and corn dropped by about 70%.
The population bomb was
So that's interesting that Brandon Sabb just said this. The sexual revolution coincides with the grain revolution, aka don't need no man. Everyone could buy food, not farm it. Well, not only buy food, but a lot of these women that don't need no man, they get like EBT from the government. So they're not even buying the corn. The man is still buying the corn through his taxes. But now you're just getting free corn and saying you don't need no man. So these kind of social programs made fatherlessness possible, but not only possible, attractive and appealing, because a lot of times these women will make more from the government than their husbands would have made if they had stayed in the family and like raised their kids. This is a problem with the black community, right? The government actually incentivizes single motherhood in the black community because they make more money. They make more money off the government than their husband would have been able to make. That's why they say if there's a man in the house, you will lose all of your benefits. And the benefits rack up like $40,000 or $50,000 worth of benefits a year. Rack up depending on how many kids you have. And then you get, you get WIC, you get Medicaid, you get all these programs where you don't have to do anything. You just fill out forms and you say, yeah, I'm a single mom, right? It doesn't matter how you became a single mom. It's not like her husband died in war, because then I would at least understand that. A widow that, was completely against her control and then he was fighting for his country. Yeah, I would understand that. But that's not the vast majority of these cases. The vast majority of these cases are just loose women with loose morals and, not willing to work at all. And it's generational. It's generational because they'll have a daughter and then she'll grow up in this fatherless household where she's getting nothing but EBT and they're comfortable, they're happy, right? And then she has a kid when she's like 15, 16, oftentimes encouraged by the mother because the mother knows that kid's a paycheck, right? So they're all like, okay, my 14, 15, 16-year-old daughter, go and get knocked up, maybe even sometimes pimped out, and then we'll say we have this child and we get $600 a week from the government. And that doesn't go to the child. No, that goes to weaves and nails and fucking menthol cigarettes. I don't know. I don't know what it goes to, but it's not going to the kid. Kids really don't cost that much. People always think, oh, kids cost so much. No, they don't. They can if you want them to, but they really don't cost that much. They cost a little bit of food and shelter, but I mean, you're eating and you live under a roof, so you can split it. Kids at the end of the day don't cost that much, but they absolutely can cost a lot. But that's your choice as a parent, right? Parenting is not what it should be. Parenting is not seen as like your primary motivator. At the end of the day, all you want to be is a good parent. But it's not, people don't think like that anymore. People think like at the end of the day, all I want to be is rich. Well, you have kids and stuff though, right? Oh, they'll be better off if I'm rich. What makes you think that? What makes you think that? Because there has been a glut of studies done on children of wealthy parents, and they don't end up happier. They tend to have higher rates of anxiety. They go see therapists more often. They have higher rates of depression and suicide. There's a lot of problems with coming up with money. And it's not so obvious. It's not so obvious, but it's there. It's insidious, right? I'm talking from experience. And shit I've seen around. Money is not the end all be all. And at the end of the day, you're going to figure out it's just paper. It's just paper, especially when you're $30 trillion in debt and then the money just hyperinflates to nothing. Then what? You spent your entire life working your ass off, doing nothing for your children except for working because that was your contribution, right? You didn't have to be a father. You didn't have to be a mother. You just had to work because that was the only thing that mattered. What happens when all that money just instantly becomes worthless? Because that can happen. What happens then? Where your children don't have a parent that they can like lean on and go to and confide in and like have that rock in their life, right? They don't have that. And you're broke. Then what? You wasted your life, didn't you? But not only your life, you wasted your kid's life. Because they could have been something that you could have encouraged that just never came to fruition. It never came about because you were a lousy ass parent. You were a greedy parent. You wanted status. You wanted people to look at you and be like, oh, he's somebody. But at the end of the day, you're just not. You're nobody. You could have been a father, but no. Now you're just nobody. Yeah.
Popularized by non-demographers and by the press back in the 70s, and real demographers even back then knew this world was coming that I'm talking about.
As a society, we don't like to talk about the causes of fertility decline. We don't want to possibly offend other people. The really chilling thing about demographic winter is that none of these causes could be easily fixed. It's who we are, who we have become increasingly in these postmodern times.
We came up in 1988 with an extremely simple indicator. I found it because I had the S&P 500 long-term on one side of my desk and the birth chart for the baby boom on the other side, and I realized the charts looked identical, put them together, 45 to 50 year lag. Take 1961, which was the peak year of baby boom births before births turned down, and add 48, the average spending, that gives you a peak around late 2009. So it really is that simple. Baby boomers earn and spend more money till around late 2009, and then they slowly earn and spend less money, and the stock market simply...
What happened in 2008, 2009? Does anybody remember? I mean, you should remember. Yeah, the housing bubble popped, and it was probably the worst recession the world had seen since the 1930s. But then we didn't really recover. I mean, not really. It's not like new industries are popping up all over the place. It's not like people are having easier time affording homes and bills and stuff. It's because the people with the money, the boomers with the money, did what people do. At the nearing of the end of their life, they started to save. They started to spend less money because they're all like, I'm getting older. I can't work forever. I'm just going to take these millions of dollars that I already have and I'm going to coast for the rest of my life. But what do you do when most of your population does that? then it creates it destroys the economy. You can't have just one big group of people who have all the money that say, you know what, I'm done spending, right? I'm done spending. And then they just coast until the end of their life. And then the government's like, you know what? When you die, I'm going to take half of that money. I'm going to take half of that money. So not only did I make your kids poor as shit because I pumped in all this money that you got, right? Because remember, me and you are working together, me and the government. You guys are, right? The boomers and the government, they made all this money. They kept it. And when they all die, the government will be rich as fuck. They're going to have almost all the money. Right? And maybe a descendant will get 50%, but that might not be worth anything. I mean, if you got, let's say you got $1 million. Well, half of it goes to the government. And $1 million, when your dad made it, you know, back in like 96, was a lot of money. You could buy 2 really nice homes. Right? But $1 million in 2024 is not a lot of money. You can't buy, I mean, you can buy one home. It's not going to be that nice. But you don't even get $1 million. You get $500,000. So you get a shack that would have been worth about 20 grand when your dad made that $1 million. And then he coasted off. This was a plan from the beginning to make you into slaves, to destroy the middle class, because the middle class is the most dangerous class to the elites. When the French Revolution came around, it was not the poor, the peasants who were organizing this. It was merchants. It was wealthy merchants, millionaires by their standards, that orchestrated and funded these revolts. And people looked at that and they're like, well, we have to get rid of those people. Yep. And so it's going to be just like Elysium, right? There's going to be a population of people that have what they need, and then a vast population of people who do not have what they need. And the power is just going to be, you won't be able to surmount it. It'll be untoppable. Because the control and the technology that they'll have is just going to completely control your life. And we're seeing it now with smart meters, with, you know, they can say who your payments get processed by. Like Visa will only process certain people because they agree, or they're not racist, or they have the right opinions or something like that. It's just steps, 100-year plan. And this is what it is. They want you all poor. They don't want you to own anything. They say you're going to be happy, but that's fucking bullshit. You know you're not going to be happy, and they know you're not going to be happy, but they don't care. Because they have everything and you have nothing. And they're going to laugh and piss in your face until you die. And they're happy about that too. Right? This shot that everybody got in 2020. I mean, 4 years ago. Not everybody's dead from it. But a lot of people have died. And who knows? Who knows if there's some sort of Bluetooth in those shots. I've heard there's Bluetooth. Maybe they'll just hook up to your Bluetooth and, you know, they'll press a button and it'll release a toxin that they injected into you back in 2020. And then the next month you get cancer. How do we know that that's not real? How do we know that's not real? Can you tell me what's in those shots? No, you can't. No, you can't, because you look at the insert and the insert is left intentionally blank. Still, to this day. So you've no idea what you injected into yourself. You've no idea what you injected into your children. And 5 billion people do that. The dumbest decision. Are you fucking retarded? This is how species go extinct. I'm shocked that it worked on so many people. Even if it was completely above board and legit. If it was completely above board and legit, they wouldn't need to spend $1 trillion convincing you to take it, would they? Nope.
Follows that because it's not their savings and investment habits that drive the stock market, which some economists think. It's spending, because spending drives the earnings of companies.
The third problem is investments in new technologies for medicine and other ways. That's partly contingent on having a lot of potential consumers.
The projections for Western Europe are that the group 30 to 44 years of age is going to drop very significantly in size.
When you have declining number of consumers at different ages, you discourage research and development, productivity growth, which is the end.
What age group have been dropping like flies ever since that shot? Is it 30 to 40, something like that? Is that because I've known people who've dropped from that. They're roughly my age. I mean, I've heard stories of kids dropping, but they're like athletes. They're running around too much.
Engine, fundamentally, the engine of growth in any economy.
Why does that in particular matter? Because over the last century, it's people between the ages of 30 and 44 in all developed countries who've disproportionately been the innovators.
It seems a strange thing with population growth so important.
30 to 45, something like that. That's your main, that's like the streak, right? I mean, that's when you're going to do something. That's when you do it. That's when you, I mean, some people can make a name earlier for themselves and stuff, especially in entertainment and stuff like that. But Nobel laureates, people who do their best work, typically do it in that window. It's when your brain is most developed, because a man's brain doesn't develop until he's at least in his late 20s. And then you're still able to, before you get the cognitive decline, but cognitive decline shouldn't happen when you're 45. But recently we've been so poisoned through various vaccines that, again, we don't know what's in them, and microplastics, lead in paint and gasoline and stuff. People should have been a lot clearer. Alzheimer's shouldn't be as prevalent as it is. But now people are losing their minds earlier. It's, yeah. Jess just had an uncle who died, and he was in Vietnam, and he couldn't think for like the last 10 years. He just could not think. I mean, he was completely lost wherever he was. He would get angry. He was like Joe Biden. He could remember one thing. And that's my uncle, really? He would always tell this story. The only story that he remembers is about Jess and them in the Publix. And then Jess said, "That's my uncle. He really is." And he told me that story every time I saw him. Every time I saw him. Never recognized me. I've been Jess's husband for like the last 6 years. He's like, no recognition, nothing, right? It's because he got exposed to Agent Orange in Vietnam, or at least that's the working theory. But also he was addicted to Coke, not cocaine, mind you, but Coca-Cola, and would drink liters and liters of it every day, to the point where people had to stop him. That's how much Coca-Cola he would be drinking. Did that contribute to his mind being gone? Yeah, probably. I mean, you drink 3-4 liters of Coca-Cola a day for 30 years, something's going to happen. Something's going to happen. If not just for the fluoride in it, right? And fluoride's in everything, I know, but I would be surprised if there wasn't something in the Coca-Cola that at very small amounts could collect over the years and cause you to be like that. Yeah, but his mind was gone. But this is the world we live in. You know, a lot of people are becoming walking zombies because of this or that or whatever they're spraying into the atmosphere. People are dumber. They're just slower. Right? And certain areas have it worse than others. Right? You ever go into an area and then just be like, wow, the people here are really, really stupid. Like, really stupid. And it's not like they're like, you know, you disagree or, you know, they're like making you mad or anything like that. You don't have a problem with them. They're just like, you can tell they're just really stupid. Is that just me? I don't think that's just me. That happens. There's some places where there's got to be something in the water here. There's no way these people could have made it through evolution to make it to this point. There's no way. This is not natural. And it's not. They want to make you as dumb and as infertile and anything. They basically all they want you to do is consume and work. Right? They don't want you thinking. They don't want you having your own thoughts. They want you to have the thoughts that they give you on the TV or on your phone, right? They want you to have those thoughts. If you don't have those thoughts, well, they better, you know, put in more fluoride, put in more drugs into the people's water or air, right? I think chemtrails are a thing now. For a while, I was like, no, that's not true. No, it's kind of, but like recently I'm like, well, fuck. Now I think it is true. I mean, everything is just degrading, and there's so many signs. It feels like we're in a rotting apple, and it's just, you know, we're like, everything's fine. It's just a little rot. It's just over here. It's not a big deal. We're still a good apple, right? But no, at the end of the day, we're like mostly rotten, and we didn't even recognize it. We didn't realize it. It just rotted around us. I hope that's a good analogy. I don't think it is, but whatever.
Important to society that we never hear about that side of the story. Could it be that we are simply not comfortable with how that story unfolds?
Ric Flair's hair says chemtrails are 100%
Young
real.
men
I mean,
are no longer...
I've been seeing some stuff, and I'm like, okay, now it's starting to make quite a bit of sense, right? With the aluminum being sprayed into the atmosphere and the weather modification, because that is real. Weather modification is definitely real, right? I just didn't think they were intentionally poisoning people with sprays from like airliners and stuff. But I did know that weather modification was a real thing. But now I'm like, okay, yeah, they probably are poisoning us to make us stupid, to make us pliable, to make us automatons, zombies, robots, right? Until they can get the real robots in. And then Elon Musk comes in, he's all like, you know what? I'll do you one better. I'll just blend them, right? I'll put chips in their head so they're not really robots, they're still people, but we could tell them whatever to do and they'll do it. They don't have any control over their body anymore because we put electrodes into their brains. Pat yourself on the back. There you go. Good work. Don't put that fucking chip in your head. Don't put that fucking chip in your head. I would say don't get that vaccine, but, you know, a little late for that.
Motivated to marry and assume marital responsibilities for the sake of sexual gratification.
This new period of life has not been as good for men.
Casey Caroline says, any good chemtrail docs out there? If you find one, let me know.
This is something that's readily available anyway.
Men have a harder time growing up, I think, without women than women do without men.
So if you're having a situation like
Well, that's because women stay children. and men actually do grow up and become men. But if there's no reason for a man to become a man, like he doesn't have a wife or a child, he'll sit there and play video games and jerk off in his bear cave. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. Right? When we have wives and families, this is why we build society, because we want to put them in nice places. Because we love. Right? We love our wives. We love our children. If we don't have love in our lives, then we're not going to really do anything. We're not going to make ourselves better. We're not going to make society better. We're just going to kill time. And that's it. And drink. And, you know, because it doesn't matter.
Europe, where people are marrying at a very, very late age. And I mean, 30, 29 years old for men and women. We have many, many people in the age of 25, 30, even 35 and more who are staying with their parents and are not forming families.
I call them child men. They are gamers, you know, spending 2+ hours a day playing video games.
But honestly, look at what they have to deal with. They have a court system that's heavily stacked against them. If they get married, they're basically they can be easily screwed, and it's difficult to trust somebody with that. They can destroy your life, and this with the power of the state, they can destroy your life, take your children away. You know, you'll have to pay money to your ex-wife for the rest of your life, and she can just leave. She doesn't have to have any sort of cause. It's not like you cheated on her or you beat her or anything like that. She just found it more profitable to leave, and then she doesn't have to listen to you anymore. And when she gets her head filled with eat, pray, love and all that shit and going off to exotic places and having brown wiener and shit, you know, women will fall for that. They'll fall for it, and it'll destroy their lives in due time, right? But it's going to destroy your life first. It's difficult. It's difficult to have that much trust in somebody, but you have to. You have to. You have to. Because the alternative is just nothingness. It's emptiness. Right? You have no reason to be on this planet. You're just eating. Right? You have no cause to fight for or rally for or, you know, build a business or build a factory. You're not going to do anything like that. This is why they can't do 100% death tax. Like, if somebody inherits money, then they can't take 100%. They know they can't take 100% inheritance tax, because that means nobody is going to build anything if they know that their kid isn't going to benefit from it in any way. They're not going to build a factory if it's all going to go to the government at the end of the day. They know this. They know this. So they take just enough. They take as much as they can for people to be like, well, I guess it's still kind of worth it. But then they, you know, just print a bunch of fake dollar bills, which pushes it over that line. And now it's not worth it, is it? And so people are just like, you know what? Throwing their fucking hands up. And they're like, I'm good. I'm fucking good. Right? I've had enough of getting taken advantage of, getting screwed over. For what? So people can send my money to Ukraine? Fuck those people. I have bills, for God's sakes. I have children. If they're not benefiting from my work input, what is the point? Rick Flair's hair, $2. Thanks, bro. What in the world are they spraying? 2010 is a good start. Okay. What in the world are they spraying 2010? Okay, I will copy that. All right, yeah, I'll look at that because I do want a good. I think Toxic Skies is that one too? That might be a movie.
We have a lot of especially cohabiting relations.
Reading Maxim magazine with all the silliness
Maxim
in there,
magazine.
watching cartoons on the Cartoon Network.
Found it.
The male has no plans for marriage with this particular
I can tell
person.
that
Simply,
lady's kind of a cunt too, right? Oh, those children with their video games and their Maxim magazines and stuff like that. I'm so much more mature than them. No, you're just ugly. I'm sorry. Being ugly doesn't make someone smarter. I don't know why people think that, but I've seen a lot of ugly people who think they're smart because God didn't bless them in the other way, right? That doesn't, if you're not attractive, it doesn't mean that God automatically made you smart. He could have made you dumb too. You should assume that, but if you weren't too stupid and ugly, if you weren't so stupid and ugly, you wouldn't, you have the problem, right? So if you're ugly, you might as well just assume you're stupid too. I'm not saying that has to be the truth, but don't assume because, you weren't gifted in this one area of life that you're automatically gifted in another. You might just be stupid. And it's hard to tell if you're stupid. It is, right? How do you know you're smarter than other people or dumber than other people? If somebody else is smarter than you, you cannot physically imagine what they're thinking because you're not smart enough. So you can't know. There's something called the Dunning-Kruger effect, where most people think they're smarter than the average person, which, if you are smart at all, you understand that that's impossible. Most people can't be smarter than average. But it's not just that. It's driving, it's everything, cooking. Most people think they're better at most things than most other people. It's a weird phenomenon. And it has to do with like ego and, but it's true. It's true. But you're not. Most people are just average. Average. And if you know what the average is, it seems pretty stupid. The average is not very... You're pretty dumb.
an arrangement of convenience.
Well, of course, it has a huge impact on fertility because people are delaying their first child. They're delaying marriage and then they're delaying their first child.
People need reasons to have children. They've known today, and they've known for a long time, how to avoid having children. If there's no economic incentive to having children, people won't unless some...
It's true. There used to be an economic incentive to have children, especially if you were in an agrarian society. You'd have more hands to work the fields, more people to bring in the crop. Now, if you're like living in the city and you have a kid till he's 16, 14, 13 is strictly a drain. Strictly a drain. They're not going to be able to bring in any sort of positive energy. They're just going to spend money. So if you live in the city, then yeah, kids are going to be expensive because they can't possibly give you, they can't work, which I think is kind of stupid, right? If a kid wants to work, he should be able to work. But no, we have child labor laws in place, which is like, that just makes it more difficult for struggling families to make it by, right? And then you can't, a child who's going to starve otherwise can't go work as a shoe polish legally. So then they have to turn to prostitution or something, right? Fuck that. Put me in the sweatshop. I'll be fine. I will be sewing all day. Just like that. I'll make you Nikes. I will make you Nikes. Anyways, I'm going to end it on there. That's our time. I lost track of time, but I will make you those fucking Nikes. But anyways, guys, sorry I ran long. Thank you so much for stopping by. Incredible Sulk, I'm going to be on Day Wave and then right back here tomorrow night. Thank you so much for supporting me with your donos and stuff. I really appreciate it. Yeah. Try to have kids. Try to have something that actually makes your life meaningful, right? And that doesn't just mean being the best whatever. Life is not strictly about money or your career or something like that. It's also about lineage and posterity and shit like that. I don't know. Think about what's important to you and then head in that direction. Anyways, guys, I'll see you tomorrow. Hit that like button if you don't mind. And take care of yourselves because I care about you too. I'll see you guys tomorrow. Love you. Bye.